In the dead of a brutal Montana winter, where the wind howled like a wounded beast and snow blanketed the world in an unforgiving white shroud, Sarah Jenkins stood at her kitchen window, cradling a mug of lukewarm coffee. At 38, she was a single mom to two young boys, Tommy and Ben, aged 7 and 5, fighting tooth and nail to keep their rickety cabin from falling apart after her husband's sudden death 3 years ago in a logging accident. The cabin, perched on the edge of a forgotten forest road, was all they had left, a humble sanctuary against the world's cruelties. But on this night, as the thermometer plunged below zero and the power flickered ominously, a distant rumble pierced the silence. It grew louder, like thunder rolling in from the mountains, until Sarah spotted them, a convoy of motorcycles, their riders hunched against the gale, struggling through the drifts. 25 bikers, clad in leather and frost, their machines sputtering in the cold. One by one, they pulled up to her driveway, desperate for shelter from the storm that threatened to claim them. Sarah's heart raced. She wasn't naive, she'd heard the stories about bikers, rough, lawless wanderers who lived by their own code. But as she peered through the frosted glass, she saw not threats, but human beings, men with beards crusted in ice, hands raw and trembling, eyes hollow with exhaustion. The leader, a burly man with a scar across his cheek and tattoos peeking from his collar, dismounted and approached her door, his boots crunching the snow. "Ma'am," he called out, his voice muffled by the wind, "we're freezing out here. Lost our way in the blizzard. Any chance we could warm up in your barn or something? We won't cause trouble." Sarah hesitated, glancing back at her boys asleep in the loft, their innocent faces lit by the dying fire. Her mind screamed caution, strangers in the night, what if they were dangerous? But her heart whispered something else, compassion. She'd been there once, alone and desperate after losing everything, relying on the kindness of neighbors to survive. How could she turn away souls in need? With a deep breath, she unlatched the door. "Come inside," she said firmly. "The barn's too cold. You'll freeze solid out there." The bikers filed in, stomping snow from their boots, their presence filling the small cabin with the scent of leather and exhaust. They were a motley crew, some with long hair tied back, others with weathered faces telling tales of hard roads traveled. Sarah busied herself stoking the fire, pulling out blankets and pillows from the linen closet, and heating up leftover stew on the wood stove. The boys stirred awake, wide-eyed at the sight of these giants in their home. Tommy clutched his teddy bear, whispering, "Mom, are they pirates?" Sarah smiled reassuringly. "No, sweetie, just travelers needing help, like we did once." The bikers, grateful beyond words, introduced themselves. The leader was Jax, president of a local chapter of the Hell Angels, on a charity run gone awry due to the storm. They weren't the villains of urban legends, many were veterans, mechanics, fathers themselves, bound by brotherhood and a code of loyalty. As the night wore on, stories flowed like the hot cocoa Sarah served. Jax shared how he'd lost his own son to illness years ago, the pain still raw. Another biker, a quiet one named Rico, spoke of his single mom who raised him through poverty, teaching him that kindness was the truest strength. Sarah opened up too, about her husband's accident, the debts piling up, the fear of losing the cabin to foreclosure. In that shared vulnerability, walls crumbled. The bikers played cards with the boys, teaching them simple tricks, their laughter echoing through the cabin like a bomb against the storm outside. By midnight, the group had settled in, some on the floor, others on couches, snoring softly as the fire crackled. Sarah lay awake in her bed, a mix of anxiety and warmth in her chest. Had she been reckless? These men could have taken advantage, but instead, they'd shown respect, even helping chop extra wood from her dwindling pile before turning in. As dawn approached, the storm began to subside, the wind dying to a whisper. Sarah rose early, brewing coffee and frying eggs from her meager pantry. The bikers awoke, stretching sore limbs, their gratitude palpable. "Ma'am, you've saved our lives," Jack said, pressing a wad of cash into her hand, donations from the group. "It's not much, but take it. Sarah protested, but they insisted. As they geared up to leave, revving their engines in the crisp morning air, Jax promised, "We won't forget this. Angels look out for their own." With a wave, they rode off into the thawing landscape, leaving Sarah with a sense of quiet fulfillment. She watched them disappear, feeling a spark of hope amid her daily struggles. But the next morning brought an unexpected turn that would forever alter Sarah's world. She awoke to the thunderous roar of engines. Not 25, but hundreds. Peering out the window, her breath caught. Surrounding her cabin, in a vast circle that stretched across the snowy field, were over 200 bikers, their Harleys gleaming under the weak winter sun. Hell's Angels patches everywhere, riders from chapters across the state, even neighboring ones. Panic surged through her. Had she offended them? Were they here for revenge? The boys clung to her legs, terrified. Jax emerged from the crowd, walking toward her door with a grin that eased her fears. "Sarah," he called, "we spread the word last night. What you did, sheltering us without question, that's rare. Real rare. So we came back. With reinforcements." What followed was a profound realization that shook Sarah to her core. These weren't marauders, they were a community, forged in adversity, repaying kindness with overwhelming force. Jax explained, after leaving, he'd radioed his network, sharing her story. Word traveled fast among the angels, her selflessness mirrored their own ethos of brotherhood and aid. They'd rallied overnight, riders braving the remnants of the storm to converge here. Not to harm, but to help. Trucks pulled up behind the bikes, loaded with supplies, groceries, firewood, toys for the boys, even building materials. A group of mechanics offered to fix her leaking roof and faulty generator. Others, accountants in their day jobs, reviewed her finances, uncovering ways to fight the foreclosure. "You're one of us now," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "No one messes with family." As the day unfolded, the scene transformed into a whirlwind of activity. Bikers hammered nails, stacked wood, and played with Tommy and Ben, who now saw them as heroes rather than strangers. Sarah wandered among them, tears streaming down her face. One biker, a Vietnam vet named Hank, shared his own tale of loss, a wife taken by cancer, leaving him alone until the angels pulled him back from the brink. "Kindness like yours," he said, "it's what keeps the world spinning. We ride hard, but we feel deep." Another, a young woman rider named Lena, the only female in the group, pulled Sarah aside. "I was a single mom too, once. Struggled every day. But one act of grace from a stranger changed everything. Now, pay it forward, that's our way." Sarah realized then the power of humanity's interconnectedness, one small act rippling outward, touching lives in ways unimaginable. The emotional climax built as the sun climbed higher. Jax gathered everyone in a circle around Sarah and her boys. "Last night, you gave us shelter," he boomed. "Today, we give you hope." From the crowd, a burly rider stepped forward with a check, funds raised from a quick collection among chapters, enough to pay off her debts and secure the cabin. But it was more than money, it was validation. Sarah, who had felt invisible in her grief, now stood surrounded by proof that selflessness breeds miracles. She broke down, sobbing into Jax's shoulder as the group cheered. The boys, beaming, hugged the biker's legs. In that moment, barriers of class, background, and stereotype dissolved. These tattooed warriors, often misunderstood, revealed hearts of gold, their generosity transforming Sarah's despair into renewal. As the day waned, the bikers began to depart, engines roaring in farewell. Sarah waved from her porch, the cabin now fortified, her pantry stocked, her spirit reignited. Jax lingered last, handing her a small pendant, a silver angel wing. "Wear this," he said. "Reminder that you're never alone." With a final nod, he rode off, the horizon swallowing the procession. Sarah clutched the pendant, watching until they were gone. In the quiet that followed, she gathered her boys close. "See, kids. One kind act can change everything." Tommy looked up, eyes wide. "Like superheroes, Mom?" She smiled through tears. "Exactly. Real ones." In the weeks that followed, Sarah's life blossomed. The foreclosure was averted, and she even started a small community outreach, in Spur. By the Angels, helping other single parents with food drives and repairs. News of the event spread locally, then nationally, a beacon of hope in a divided world. People from all walks reached out, sharing their own stories of unexpected kindness. Sarah realized the universal truth: in America's vast tapestry, from bustling cities to remote cabins, humanity's power lies in our capacity for compassion. It's not about grand gestures, but the quiet choices to see the good in others, to extend a hand without expectation. The biker's visit taught her that selflessness isn't weakness, it's the spark that ignites chains of goodwill, proving that even in the coldest storms, warmth can prevail. Years later, Sarah would tell this story at gatherings, her voice steady with emotion. "I was just a mom trying to survive," she'd say. "But by opening my door, I opened my heart, and the world poured in." The tale resonated across the USA, from truck stops in Texas to cafes in New York, reminding folks that beneath the leather and the labels, we're all riders on the same road, bound by the simple, profound act of caring. In a nation built on dreams and second chances, it whispered, "Be kind, for you never know when 25 strangers might become 200 allies, turning isolation into unbreakable bonds." And in that hope, we find our truest strength.